How to build system in business. Most owners think that systems are for really big companies. Well, that's why they stay small and exhausted. You're rebuilding and redoing the same thing over and over again because the process of what you're doing remains stuck in your head. We got to get that out. By the end of this video, you're going to have a system building process that you can repeat and use forever. We were working with a contractor in Texas. Texas contractors tend to have a little bit of swagger. So it's kind of hard to talk to them sometimes. You got to kind of bulldoze them and strong arm them just to do some things. And so we were having this conversation, diagnosing the business a little bit, and we were really locking in on a certain pain point, and it was around estimating. It's a huge part of a contracting business is the idea of estimating a project. You get that wrong, you're going to get a lot of other things wrong downstream. Well, when we put the numbers to it, we realized that this particular contractor was spending upwards of 18 to 30 hours of the estimating process and putting all of this stuff together. We were like, hey, you can really bring that down quite a bit. And so we followed a 10-80-10 policy. And it took a little while to convince this contractor this was going to be able to work, but we followed the 10-80-10 policy to where he could do a lot of work on the front end, the 10, and then he could have a machine do the heavy lifting. We built a process, and then the final 10 was him refining that process, which took his time from about 18 to 30 hours per estimate down to about 1 to 2 hours per estimate. How did we do that? Well, the 80%, we documented it, and then delegated it. And so that's what we're going to talk about, is how you can do that to start to build this system so that not only you can create this repetitive product that's predictable, but also so that you can gain more time for the things that matter most in your business or in your life. Now, when we think about systems, I want you to think in terms of what we call the RPM. So let's think about a gauge, and you've got kind of this automotive gauge, and we're going to go RPMs. What does that mean? So there's 3 areas that we want to think about. And I actually took this from a story I read about Ernest Shackleton when he commandeered his ship, the Endurance, down from England near Antarctica. They were going to try to walk across Antarctica and never made it because they got stuck in the Weddell Sea. It's a fascinating story about how over 2 years, 28 men stuck on a frozen tundra, and not one of them died, and they all made it back home. It's a crazy story. You can go read it. But in that, what we found is Shackleton leveraged the RPMs of great leadership. Number 1, repetition. Repetition. Oh, you see what I did there? All right, so repetition is when team members come to work for you, believe it or not, they actually want repetition. I know a lot of times we as owners think, we got to keep it fresh, we got to keep it moving, and there is truth to that. But the reality is we also want repetition, which leads to the P, and that's predictability. That's really what we want. Believe it or not, humans don't like to wake up every day, and it's just a completely new, chaotic, crazy day. We actually like routine. In fact, at the time of this filming, we're just coming out of a big seasonal break, and when you're talking to people and you're saying, hey, how was your break? A lot of times they'll go, it was great, but I'm ready for the routine. I'm ready to get back. My kids are going back to school. I'm going back to work. I just like the routine. So most of us really do like the routine. Now within that routine, we don't like it when we've created the repetition. It leads us to predictability, but there's a lack of meaning. And so that's that M, is we've got to have meaning when we're building process. So I want you to think about the individual process of your business. Let's take payroll. That happens every couple of weeks for most people. And so in payroll, it's not a good idea to do payroll differently every time. We want to do it pretty much the same way every single time. So we want to create repetition, which then leads to predictability. But in order to keep that team member engaged, we've got to do something meaningful about it. So for instance, tying payroll to story. How does that payroll impact somebody's life? And so you get to kind of see the big wins around that. So that's how we wrote in RPMs, repetition, predictability, and meaning, in order to create systems. All right, so we've taken our RPM system. Now with that, I'm going to give you another acronym, and that is we're going to, and I know you've heard about this in business, IPO. And you're going, public offering? No. It has nothing to do with that. We're not talking about investments here. What we're talking about is system building. So in order to build systems that are repetitive, predictable, and meaningful, we're going to follow the IPO process. And here's what that is. You ready? Input, process, output. So in order to get the process, we need to get input. We need to get data as to what's going on. That's why we utilize the systems mindset in building process. The systems mindset says this: whatever the next thing is we're about to do, I want you to capture it, record it, like it's the last time you'll ever do that thing. The next time you do payroll, the next time you do collections on receivables, the next time you do permit pull process for your new build that you're about to do. Whatever that is, I want you to think about what are the inputs, because we're going to grab that with the systems mindset. What's the input? What's the actual process, the steps to be able to do that? What's the output of that thing? What's the product of that thing going to be? What does success look like in that particular process? So take any process that exists in your business. Let's take a marketing process. And you want to build out your website. And you want people to come to your website. You want to follow up with those people. There's a process to building, to refining, and to capturing leads on your website. In fact, your website shouldn't exist unless it exists to capture leads. That's the whole purpose of the website. Too many of us use that for like a sales brochure. No. It needs to be a 24-hour salesperson for you. So we need to process that. So take input. What makes a great website? What makes a great website for you? What should that website look like? Think through all of those details. You process out how we build and refine that thing, and then we're looking at the output for that. Or you could take a process in your sales, a sales conversation, right? That should have a sales script. So you think, input, what are all the details of a great sales script for us in our business? What is that when we step by step lay that out into a process? And what's the outcome or the output we're looking for that thing? So you think in those three parts in order to make it repetitive, predictable, and meaningful. So systems mindset, we do this thing all the time. The next time we do it, let's go ahead and grab it by thinking what are the inputs, what's the step-by-step process, and then what's the outcome or the output that we're looking for. And in doing that, we make it repetitive, predictable, and meaningful. So let's say you build this process and you've got out kind of a step-by-step methodology for how you do this one particular thing. Well, once you build it, it just sort of sits there. Great, we built it. Now what do we do? Well, now what we've got to do is we've got to be able to train other people to do that process like we do that process, and at some point even better. John Maxwell, I'll give you a little bar graph here. Super simple. John Maxwell, I heard him say this one time, or maybe read it in a book, and he said, if somebody can do a thing 80% as well as you do it, then go ahead and delegate it. And I heard it and I was like, yeah, heck yeah. And then I looked at my bar graph and I was like, wait, 80% as well. So you know what I saw as a pragmatic skeptic, which I'm trying to recover from? I saw the 20% that's not getting done right. And that really bothers me. And so what John Maxwell says is 80% as well, go ahead and delegate it, which means there's going to be a 20% gap that they don't do well. But here's the good news. When they follow your process, the next time they do it, they're going to do it 90%. And then the next time they do it, they'll do it 100%. And then the next time they do it, they might do it 110%. See, that's what I think we're really nervous about as owners, that we're going to be outpaced by the people we delegate our things to. And the truth is, you want that. That's what we're looking for. And so when we build these things repetitively, predictably, meaningfully, using the systems mindset, so we've got this process and we want to start delegating this now. So how do we train on this? I'm going to give you a super simple methodology. You ready? So imagine this is a spreadsheet. Looks about like a spreadsheet. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all the weeks of the year, there's 52 of them, and you're going to put the dates right here on every single week. And then you're going to take your sales process. And so all the processes in sales, or all the processes in marketing, or all the processes in operation, and each week you're going to train on one marketing process. Next week you're going to train on the next marketing process, and the next, all the way through. And then your sales process, you're going to train on one of those this week, and here, and here, and here, and rinse and repeat over and over and over again. Now, I want you to watch the math and how this works. This is exponential, and frankly, it's unbelievable. This is what makes it repetitive and predictable, is when you get a spreadsheet, weeks of the year, the training that needs to be done, and you start to do it over and over and over again. Next thing you know, you've got 4 trainings a week, let's call it, based on your marketing, sales, ops, and admin, and you got 52 weeks a year. Now you've trained over 200 times in 1 year just by doing it once a week. And all you did was you got the input, created the process with a predictable output. The next time you do the thing, you actually capture it with that process, and you've made it repetitive, predictable, and meaningful, and now you've delegated somebody so that they can do it 80% as well as you, and over time, they'll do it better than you. Wouldn't that be freeing for you to be able to do that? Well, now you just have to do it. Go ahead, follow the systems mindset, and you can start creating those processes. So I've got another video that it's really going to be worth your time to walk through, and that is how to train new hires so you can ensure you get the right person to work all of these wonderful processes that you're building. So click on the link in the description below. It'll take you to that video, and you can spend some time really taking notes to what you need to do to invest in these people. The reason we're doing all this is because I want you to be liberated from chaos to make time for the things that matter most. So I'm talking about delegating to these people all these processes that you built on a repetitive, predictable, meaningful scale. Well, you may need some help with that. So we've got a killer gift that we've built. So if you go to trainnewhires.com, we have got an employee training handbook that's going to really be helpful for you. And not only that, but some of our team chocked that whole page full of templates as well that you'll be able to use to start and ensure you're bringing on the right people to invest the right processes into them. So go to trainnewhires.com and that'll be helpful for you in order to liberate you from chaos to make time for the things that matter most.